Dratta, what are you doing? Is it that time? Is it finally time we did this? Huh? Well, I guess it is time. I know that you have a lot of good stories as an alicorn. Yes, I do. That's right, folks. It's story time. Let's get this started. So, Dratta, what story should we tell today? What does Dratta have on his mind? What's that? You want to tell that story? That one? How I got into the fandom? Really? That's the story we're going to tell? Alright, that's a good start. Well, guys, it's Dratta Arcana here. And, yeah, just as my OC explained, we're going to talk about how I got into the My Little Pony fandom. This is a story I've told maybe once or twice, but I think I should clarify. This goes back to August 1st, 2017. That's about, almost 2 years now. And how it got started was back in the day of, back in 2017. At the time, I was the guild master and raid leader of a guild in World of Warcraft. I believe it was called Nightmare something. Anyways, it was a long time ago, so I hardly remember the guild name at this point. But we were a guild on the realm of World of Warcraft called Lightbringer. Back then, I had never heard of My Little Pony. I had never heard of My Little Pony Friendship with Magic, and I never even heard of Bronies. Believe it or not, I had never heard of it. I was so enveloped in video gaming and just gaming in general. And I was also very busy with my film career. And back then, I was either gaming all the time, didn't really pay attention to my YouTube channel, Dratta Arcana, and I hadn't even started Dratta Arcana gaming yet. And our guild was the first to defeat the first boss of Emerald Dream, or Emerald Nightmare. That was the name of our guild, in fact, Emerald Nightmare. Originally, it was called the Dragon Guard. It was my guild. I had founded it, but the guild decided to change the name to make it more appealing. I was the guild master, or at this point, I had turned the guild over to a friend of mine. And she was the guild master, I was the assistant guild master. Of course, everything had to go through me for all the finances of the guild and so forth. She didn't want that responsibility. And that was my friend Munster. At the time, she was dating a guy who also played World of Warcraft. And he had several friends. And, you know, we all kind of built this guild. Well, it turns out that Munster decided that it was a good time to bring in new members. We were in the process of building up the guild and stuff, and after the raid, it turns out that our healer had going on in the background of his mic when he decided to speak up, I heard, My Little Pony. I was like, what? You know, I was just like, huh? Really? You're okay? So later on, we were in a dungeon, and I heard from the healer, our healer, Deacon, again, My Little Pony. And I'm like, dude, what are you watching? And he's like, oh no, I'm not watching anything. It's my sisters that are watching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I'm like, what is this? You know, what is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic? Meanwhile, the other assistant guildmaster are Shadow something. Shadow Blaze, I believe was his name. Anyways, he was, he's a good friend of mine. We're still friends today on Discord and stuff. And he's like, oh, you've never heard of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic? It's amazing. And Deacon's like, our healer's like, if you say so. Turns out our hunter, Bolto, was like, oh yeah, it's a great show. And I'm like, all right, what is this? And they're like, oh, you gotta watch it, it's just a cartoon. I'm like, uh-huh, yeah, right. So anyways, I decided to say, I told myself after I got offline that night, I was like, I don't get it. I don't know what this is. I never heard of My Little Pony. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go on Netflix. So I went on Netflix that night. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I got to go to work in the morning. That stinks. Got to go to work for my 12-hour shift at the Department of Natural Resources. I'm like, all right, I'll watch an episode. Went on to Netflix. Found season 1, episode 1. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not gonna like this. I'm like, no, I will not like this at all. It's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be awful. I'm not gonna like this. But I'm like, but you know what? There might be that rare 1% chance, that I'll like it. Played the first episode. The intro song was an immediate turnoff. I was like, oh God, no. This is terrible. This is awful. Oh God. And then I saw the Once Upon a Time. And I'm like, oh, come on. We're going to start with the traditional Once Upon a Time. Seriously? I was like, oh God. So anyways, I started watching it. And I got through the first episode. And I'm like, oh, this is just, it's cringeworthy and then Nightmare Moon. Nightmare Moon. And I was like, this is really good. This is really good. And I'm like, yes, I will watch this. This is awesome. Cool. We have a bad guy or bad girl. I'm like, yes. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyways, I was like, all right. That left with a cliffhanger. I was just like, oh, come on. They had to leave it with a cliffhanger. So I'm like, all right, let's watch the second part. I watched it. And right when Nightmare Moon threw lightning bolts at the Pegasus Royal Guard, I was just like, yes, this is for me. I will totally watch this. Meanwhile, I live alone, and I'm like looking around, in case my neighbors find out. I was just like, oh my gosh, is anyone going to spy on me, that I'm watching it? So I watched the second episode. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it's just like, I'm like, all right, that was cool. Nothing to get fanatic about, right? You'd think. Nah, I turned on the next episode, and the next episode was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. Next episode. The next few episodes were kind of just like, for me. But then the finale. Oh my gosh. I didn't like the finale of season 1 because it felt really just not me. But then I watched the next season in Discord. And I was just like, well, shoot. I'm already 1 season into this. Let's watch the rest. And I watched the whole thing. When I got to season 4 in the Battle of Tyrek, I was just like, yes! So anyways, I finished watching this whole thing, and I get back on World of Warcraft like, I don't know, 3 days later after watching the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, I watched the whole series. And they were like, so, are you a brony? And I'm like, huh? And that's when, a few weeks later, I went down to my card store. And I'm like, yeah, I started watching My Little Pony. And then the guy at the counter was like, you know there's a card game, right? And I'm like, oh, really? Well, whatever. So anyways, I was at my local Target back in November, purchasing, dumbly, stuff to buy loot boxes in Shadow of War. Yes, my most popular character build video. If any of you guys are wondering, yes, I got all that gear with loot boxes. Why? Because the time to actually farm that stuff out and make a character build is a lot harder than it should be. And plus, I'm a really, really lazy gamer. So, anyways, aside from that, I discovered these little boxes at Target. They were $1.99. And they were for the My Little Pony collectible card game. And that's how I got into the card game. Then I went around searching all over online to find other people that played the game. Eventually I ran into a lot of people online, and that's how I discovered the Brony fandom. If it wasn't for the fact that I have an addiction to gaming, yes, I will admit it, I have an addiction to gaming, folks. But if it wasn't for that, I don't think you guys would know me, Dratta Arcana, and this lovely, lovely allegory. Anyways, guys, that's kind of how I got into it. And that's how I eventually found out about Winnie City through my friend Joking Luna, who I invited over for dinner and I cooked and everything. So that's kind of how I broke into it. It wasn't like I didn't become a brony overnight. It took months of meeting people, making friends, making connections that really got me invested in what I do. If it wasn't for Winnie City, I wouldn't have come back to my channel. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the story. And I gotta give this alicorn a slap because I didn't want to do a story time. Anyways, guys, besides me slapping my own OC, it's like slapping yourself. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you guys on the next video.